And it's featherweights on the poster and featherweights to kick off this card. Coming up this weekend, we have Korean Zombie MMA teammate. It is Sting Seungwoo Choi taking on the Dutch kickboxer who has a little bit of judo in his back pocket. I'm talking about Jarno Errens. And this is a fight that I'm oddly excited about because for Seungwoo Choi, he only does have one bonus in his UFC career, and he has lost his last 3 fights. It does feel like a tale of 2 different fights for both of these competitors because for Choi, it's a chance to get back on the horse, to get back in the win column, and if he loses 4 in a row, that could be it. He seems like one of those fighters like a Gregory Rodriguez that we had last weekend where the talents, there are plenty, the chin, it stays out there in the wind quite a bit, and for Choi, his last 3 fights, they're losses. 2 of those 3 are by finish. He goes out there, he cracks Alex Caceres, drops him, and then in the scramble, Caceres gets a submission win. Choi goes out there against Joshua Kulibao, gets officially dropped twice. I counted 3, if not 4. And then Choi's last time out, the double knockdown like it's Dale Doback and Brennan Huff and Step Brothers with a baseball bat and a golf club. Choi gets cracked again, and then he gets cracked a 3rd time. They credited Trezano with 2 knockdowns. They decided that wasn't good enough. Mike Trezano, happy trails. We don't need you in the UFC. I saw 3, but for Seungwoo Choi, he's in that JP Bays category of getting knocked down in some of these fights. If he's taking on a better grappler, he can struggle in some of the spots like Evloev on about a month's notice in the debut or Gavin Tucker. But where I do like Seungwoo Choi is he's really well-rounded, but it seems like he sees red. He bites down on the mouthpiece, and Daniel Cormier even called him out in some of his recent fights. He leads with his head and kind of closes his eyes in the blitzes, and he gets hit quite a bit. And against Jarno Errens, who's got a lot of power, we've seen it with the uppercut up the middle, we've seen it with some of his hooks and his kicks. It could get Choi caught, but now he's automatically going away from even the top 30, and he's taking on an Errens who had a competitive fight in his debut against William Gomis, but he's still in that very much like an introductory stage to his career.
I've said this about Michael Oleksiejczuk, and don't worry, we're going to get to that fighter in just a bit, but he's one of these fighters who, if I just tell you all the positives, you're probably going to assume he's a top 5, top 10 fighter in the division, and then if I start to trickle out some of the weaknesses, it paints the fuller picture. And for Seungwoo Choi, he is a bit in that category. If you just want to talk about the positives that he can bring into the cage, well, he's huge for the weight class. He does do a good job at closing the distance when he is able to do it effectively, but like you mentioned, there is kind of always that by the way with his skill set, and I would take it a little step further than even just the durability issues, because like you said, when he's the better grappler, he can have success on the mat. But the problem is, if I see you get hurt on the feet, if I see you get out grappled, it does lead me to wonder, okay, what kind of an opponent is tailor-made for you to go out there and beat? And for Jarno Errens, I think Seungwoo Choi has the more mixed martial arts skills in his toolbox, but he could walk into a big shot and completely change the complexion of this fight. And that's why it's always been difficult breaking down a Seungwoo Choi fight, because if you just look at his skill set, he's better than a 10-6 fighter. And I know he's fought pretty good fighters in the UFC too, but again, if you just look at all the positives he brings into the cage, they are very numerous, but at this stage of his career where we've seen him get hit, we've seen him get controlled, I do worry about, again, if you gave Seungwoo Choi a game plan and you say, okay, how is the exact method you want to go out there and beat Jarno Errens? I'd be curious to see what his answer is. Would he decide to strike a little bit on the outside, even though, of course, that could probably lead to his doom? Or will he go for a lot more of the wrestling? Because it is one of those double-edged swords for him, and I don't think he's going to be on the receiving end of a ton of traditional takedowns in this matchup, but I would like to see him at least go to that well a little bit more. Because, again, if he's just a sitting duck on the outside, Errens throws with so much more heat and speed with his own shots that I do worry about the overall durability of Woo Choi.
Jarno Errens is one of those guys, again, he's got a judo brown belt. His parents had a judo school, so he grew up in that environment. We've had a lot of fighters come into the UFC recently who have had that lineage. You think of Michael Morales, his parents are both into the mixed martial arts. Omar Morales' dad and karate started Slam! His own mixed martial arts. So for Jarno Errens, he has that judo in his back pocket. He gets the kickboxing done, and really his kicks set up his boxing. And that's one of the weird things. Errens will kind of go to the kicks to throw it and melt things into his combinations, but then at points he'll just decide to box. And in his fight against Max Koga, you see him go out there with the jab and then throw the uppercut. He knocks him down, he knocks him dead, and throws it was almost like a Dan Henderson H-bomb. Like he's just jumping in there and landing on top. But with Errens, he makes that debut against William Gomis, and I listened to an interview that Jarno Errens did recently with Sensei Sam, and it was interesting because they were out there kicking the mitts, and then they're sitting in the gym and talking to one another, and he said that he cut 12 kilograms for that fight against William Gomis. He went from 78 to 66 kgs on short notice. He also said that, the fight he was supposed to have against David Onama that was going to be earlier on this year, that one fell out because he had a shoulder injury. He also has his own video series out there, kind of like we saw it out of the fight before Sean Strickland took on his last opponent, Abus Magomedov. This guy's out there doing his own production, doing his own road too. Well, Jarno Errens is doing that like Magomedov was. And for Errens, a couple of weeks ago, so who really knows how long ago they filmed it, but he was working his way through an ankle injury. He said it's been kind of tough to deal with, but it's been a part of the camp. So Errens with the ankle injury, earlier on the shoulder injury, but you go back and you watch his fights, his takedown defense is bad. It's straight up bad. I watched his fight at Brave CF 61. It was a cross promotion where Errens was the NFC champ at one point, and Brave does a lot of cross promotion like that. They do it with Octagon, spelled with a C, not K, the big Octagon. But Errens in that fight against Abdullayev, he gets taken down in the first round. He gets taken down in the third round. Third round, he's able to reverse it and get into some advantageous grappling positions. And in the second round, he was able to land one of those Koshi Garumas, just like old Gregory Rodriguez will land. But for Errens, again, the striking's where it gets done. The takedown defense is bad, and I could see him being at a size disadvantage, even though both these guys are pretty... They're both pretty big featherweights in this one. Ultimately, again, I think Seungwoo Choi is better than your average 10-6 UFC fighter on a 3-fight skid. The odds suggest that because Choi is a 2-1 favorite in this one. We have a look at the topology votes. Matt, surprised that's there to you. I'm going to say over under 75% Choi in this one.
I was thinking 65, so I'll say under.
I'm going to say under. It's slightly under. So 652 total votes, 72% Choi, 76% by decision. For the 28% that have Errens, 62% by decision. I think the biggest point I can make on Choi as far as odds and fan votes are concerned. Choi, out of all of the losses, Caceres, Culibao, and then his last time out against Mike Trezano. 78% of the fans on Topology, 85%, 82% have picked him to win in those fights. He has been favored in multiple fights, all but the Evloev fight, the Tucker fight, and the fight against Yusuf Salal in the UFC. So more often than not, Seungwoo Choi is a favorite. He's usually a pretty big favorite too, and he's lost in those big stages. That could happen this weekend, but who do you have in the pick here?
Any more negative things to say about the man? I do have Seungwoo Choi in this matchup. Again, I was going into this fight in this prediction video kind of assuming I wasn't going to pick him just because of how poor his last few performances have been. But the thing about Jarno is, it's not just the takedown defense. He lets guys get to his hips. Even if they don't secure that takedown attempt, it's still wasting time and at least putting out some of the fire he's able to do on the outside with his own strikes. So Seungwoo Choi can slow this fight down, not fight at the pace of Jarno, and not hesitate when he does initiate a lot of these exchanges. Because if Seungwoo Choi does find himself kind of clenching up and moving out chin first, that's when normally things start to go poorly for him. So I do have Seungwoo Choi, but if he loses this one, I don't know what they do with a 10-7 featherweight at this division.
They cut the out of him. Why would they keep a 10-7 featherweight on a 4-fight losing streak?
I know, Craig. That's why I said I don't know what they're going to do with them.
You do know.
Yeah, they're going to cut him, Craig.
They're going to cut him. I have Seungwoo Choi in the matchup. I think he's going to be able to cut some of that distance against Errens. And we saw a good counter striker in William Gomis have success in the offensive wrestling the last time out. I know one of the judges scored it 29-29, and that's why it's a draw. He scored the last round as a 10-10. I thought Errens had a little bit of a case round 2, round 3 with the damage in the shots versus some of the pot shots and the grappling of Gomis. That's neither here nor there. So in this matchup, both of us going with Seungwoo Choi, but for Jarno Errens, complete skill set except for the takedown defense. We'll see how it plays out for him in this one. And again, as I said to open it, featherweight in the marquee. Max Holloway taking on Korean Zombie in the main event. You're not going to want to miss it. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, we always say.
Let's get into it.